This video is for nerve hammer piston disassembly and cleaning, rebuilding if necessary. It's a very low maintenance gun, so this can last many cases without being done. But you'll probably have to do it eventually just to make sure the gun is clean and in a good working order. The first step to this is you have to remove the hammer from the body. This is done by removing the bolt. You can see the hammer right there, it's in the back. You have to remove the eye ribbon first. If you don't do that, it'll get ripped when you take the piston out. So I just left it in there to remind you to do that. Just pull it on out, throw it aside, it's done. Okay, piston is held in using this screw right in front of the solenoid, which is right here. The screws are moved using a 5/32" Allen wrench. Usually, sometimes it's a 1/8 inch. Usually it's 5/32. In this video it's 5/32 as well. So I take that out, set that aside. Now, the hammer will still be inside the gun, and you're going to have to pull it out the back. What the manual suggests doing is taking the bolt, flipping it around, and inserting it into the groove, pulling it out. That works pretty good, so that's what I do. Now just pull it the rest of the way out. You can take the nerve body and set it aside. Now the piston itself has 5 O-rings on the outside, which can cause leaks. The front two cause leaks. The rest of them aren't really that involved. They don't get damaged very often, so you won't have to replace those. What I'm going to do is remove the hammer from the ram, which is the first step in removal. For that you need 2 3/16" Allen wrenches. I have one I'm going to stick in the front, and I have another which I'm going to stick right there. And you unscrew the two from each other, which will be hard to do because the hammer is Loctited on. So you're going to have to crack it, and then once it's loosened up, you can just take that off. Set that aside. Now, the piston housing itself is divided up into 2 parts, which have to be removed separately. For that, I take 2 5/8" wrenches, put them into position in the wrench flats, and then unscrew the 2 sections from each other. And again, they're Loctited together, so you're going to have to crack them, and then once they're loosened up, you can get them apart easier. Now, front section simply slide off, and then the ram can come off from the rear section. And there'll be a bumper located right here on the end. You can probably see that, I don't know. Now the ram itself just has to be cleaned off using paper towel or cloth, napkin, whatever you have. So make sure all the grease is clear from it. If you want, you can use an O-ring pick. You can use an O-ring pick to remove the sail O-ring from the ram. It's going to come right off when you pull on it, and it'll slide off. You can throw it out. Now the bumper is located in front of the large O-ring on the ram. You can just slide that off and set it aside. This is the bumper for the outside of the piston. So now the ram is completely clear of O-rings. There's 2 more O-rings. One's located in the back end of this ram section, and the other's located in the very front of the valve. And the front valve seal can cause some problems, so you might want to replace that. If you do, just use an O-ring pick to pry it out and take the new O-ring and drop it into position, hold one end of it down, and just pop the other end into position. That's how I do it. That's how it seems to be easiest, so that's what I suggest doing. It's the same thing with this O-ring, although it's a little bit smaller, so it's harder to do. Take your time, and if you scratch the O-ring up in the process, just replace it with another one, since they're pretty small, little cheap things. I'm not going to replace these 2 since they're already good. I'm going to set those aside. Simply gets slid on, popped into its groove, that's ready to go. You can take the bumper and put it back on at this point. It doesn't really matter. You don't even have to take it off. Set the ram there. Take a Q-tip, clean out this back end of the valve. There'll be all kinds of grease and dirt in there. You want to make sure that's clean. You can also clean out the front, which is where the valve poppet seals. That'll cause a leak out the front of the bolt if it's damaged, so I want to make sure it's clean and ready to go. The back of the ram piston, you can use a Q-tip to clean out the inside like this. It's not really that required, but it doesn't hurt. Now you're ready to get everything back to reassembly status, but first you have to take the paper towel or anything you have and clean out the threads, because they're going to have a bunch of Loctite on them and you want to clear that away before you do anything else. I'm going to clean this. Those two threads are ready to go. The ram also has threads which attach to the hammer, so that's done. Take some Dow 33 shocker lube, sleek, whatever. Take a very, very generous amount and lubricate the O-ring on the ram. You'll probably want to use as much as you can without just slopping it all on. It's basically covered with grease. You can see a little bit of the black O-ring in there. Take a little bit more grease. Do the small end of the ram. Cover the ram itself with grease. Now take the ram section, which is the larger piece that has 3 O-rings on the outside. Insert the ram into it. Make sure you have the bumper on there, or else you'll have to take it apart later and put it back on. The gun will leak if you don't have the bumpers, so you have to have those. So if you do have the bumpers, then insert it in there. Push it about halfway through. Take more grease. Grease up the front exposed part of the ram. You could also do this while it's separated, but it doesn't matter. Now set that down. Now you're going to be Loctiting the two halves of the piston together. For this you can use Loctite stick like I have, or liquid. It doesn't really matter. Liquid looks like this, or this. Doesn't matter what you use, but use a nice good amount to put on the male threads only. So get the threads nice and covered with Loctite and push the two pieces of the piston together. Tighten them up. Now use your two 5/8" wrenches, stick them in the flats, and make sure that the two pieces are good and tight. You want them to be pretty tight, but you obviously don't want to crank down as hard as you can, because then it'll make it impossible to take apart in the future. So this is good. Take the ram bumper, stick it on the edge of the ram, like that. Insert your Allen wrench into the front of the ram. Now take more Loctite, put it on the male threads of the ram itself. Take the hammer, simply screw the two together. Once they're tight, stick your other Allen wrench, a 3/16", into the edge of the ram. Make sure the two are tightened down. Now that the piston is reassembled, you can push it back and forth a couple times. It's nice and smooth, ready to go. The outside should be clean and clear of all grease and old things. You can replace the 5 outside O-rings by removing them with an O-ring pick, or however you want. They're 1570 O-rings, so they're pretty common. So if you want to replace them, then just get another 5 and throw them all on. If you're ready to reassemble, take some more grease, put it on all the outside O-rings. Grease them all up really good. These are non-moving O-rings, so you can't over-grease them. I'm only going to grease these two just for demonstrational purposes. You should grease all 5. Make them all ready to go. Take your nerve body. This is the front, this is the back. It's going to go in through the back of the body. Now the hole in the top of the piston where you can see the very front of the silver ram, this is going to face up. Now on the underside there's a blind hole where you can't see anything except for the piston. That's going to face down. So when you're ready to go, take the piston, insert it in the back, gently and slowly push it forward. Don't push it too fast or else you might screw things up. Don't want that to happen. Now flip the body up and look through the large valve lock hole. Keep pushing the piston in until you see the opposing hole in the piston. This is where the lock screw is going to go. So when the hole is aligned, you can put the screw in, tighten it down. If the screw doesn't immediately go down as far as it should, then take an Allen wrench and stick it in the hole and use it to move the piston around a little bit. Once it's in the right position, try the screw again. Hopefully it'll go all the way in, like that. Everything's now ready to go. The hammer will be in a forward position, so you can just go like that and it should come all the way back. You can reassemble the bolt, put the valve, pop it back in with a spring, LPR, put everything back together, test it out, make sure there's no leaks. The only other thing, which I forgot to mention earlier, is that since you Loctited everything together, you'll have to wait 12 to 24 hours, I suggest 24, before you actually air it up again. So take the gun, set it aside, leave it there for a day, then come back the next day, and then you can air it up and make sure there's no leaks. If you air it up before the Loctite cures, then there's a chance that the parts wouldn't seal quite right. And if that happens, then you're going to have all kinds of problems and you don't want to run into that. So leave the Loctite there, let it cure, then you'll be good to go.